everybody, it's Liz here. Sorry, I'm a bit shaky in my hand, so the camera's not going to be very steady, and I'm not looking particularly. I've put some eye makeup on because we're trying to see if I'll be well enough to go out this evening. I bought tickets to go see Slash in London for my husband's birthday, which is on Monday. And I missed out the last time I got tickets to see Slash. I was also in hospital. And I really don't want to miss out, but I'm in a lot of pain in my neck. So anyway, yeah, I've been AWOL, and this isn't clickbait at all. Basically, I think the last video I did, I was talking about how great Stanmore had been and that I was waiting for some news and I hadn't really heard anything. And so at the end of last month was pretty horrific. I had 2 hospital appointments, one day after the next, and patient transport, which has always been great for me, especially as I can't drive at the moment. They failed to turn up twice. The first day, they basically were like just late. They said that they'd changed my appointment at the hospital, pushed it back by an hour, which I had not given my permission to do, and it was just because they had no drivers to come and get me. And then on the Friday, I had my really important gastro appointment, and my mum took the day off to come and come with me, and they didn't show up, and I called at 3 because my appointment was at 4. It usually takes an hour and a half at least on a Friday to get there, and they said there was no vans and no one was coming, but they hadn't even bothered to tell me, so I couldn't even make other arrangements to get to hospital. So that was pretty devastating. And then I had had a letter from Stanmore, finally my clinic letter, and it said that the plan of action, and it was what they'd said, but at the bottom they'd put that they're not doing the MRIs there anymore that they wanted to do, and that they thought that it's best off if the Royal Free did it. So I was really confused, and then so I left it a few days. In the meantime, the whole patient transport saga, I've taken it as an official complaint because it just devastated me, because I was so obviously worried because this appointment for gastro had to be cancelled, and luckily for me there was a slot 2 weeks later, so I didn't have long to wait. Otherwise I'd have had to wait till May, and my dietitian had written to my gastro doctor asking to admit me because my gastro stuff has got so bad, and we hadn't heard anything, and it was just rubbish basically. So I basically then went, I called Stanmore and was like, what's going on, why are the MRIs cancelled? And I was told, oh, they're specialised and it's easier if they're done at the Royal Free. I said, well, has it been done urgently? And they said no. So I said, but the doctor I saw in clinic said it would be urgent and that I'd get the results for the end of February, which is when my next appointment was. And so then we didn't hear anything for a long time, and I ended up on the following Tuesday in hospital because I not only was very distressed and depressed and just felt like every single part of the NHS had let me down because my GP refused to listen about Sjögren's, and now they're actually testing me for it, and all this swelling here. No one's taking any notice of it or what's wrong with it. And the patient transport had let me down, and Stanmore, the one place I actually trusted complicitly with my care because they're so good with EDS, had basically failed me too. But my stomach issues had got so bad I couldn't eat at all. The pain in the back of my neck was really bad, and I had terrible pain in my cheeks and my jaw. I ended up luckily at Adam Brooks, which is where all my gastro doctor is based and other people that I see. And I was there for 10 days in total because, well, I shouldn't have been. But basically, they were so busy. It was in the news. Sorry, I've got my eyelashes are crazy. They're in the news because they were full to capacity. They shut the A&E. It was bad. I was stuck on the CDU, which is like literally you're supposed to be there for 24 hours. And I was there for 5 days and literally every day saw a different doctor and had to re-explain why I was there. And I had to explain everything. They didn't know me. They didn't understand anything really. And nothing was done. And I'd said about the MRIs needed to be done because they were urgent. And they said, no, you have to come back as an outpatient. And I was like, well, that's going to be weeks or months. And in the past, I've had so much pain, say, when I had my slip disc, I was kept in hospital for pain management and they did an MRI within 24 hours because of the pain. And I literally couldn't move my head. It's so painful right now. And they were like, let's send the pain team down to see you. Their suggestions were a TENS machine for your face, which I tried. And my whole cheek here went into spasm. It was twitching. So we turned the machine off and it still was twitching for a whole hour afterwards. And the nurse was really concerned and said not to put it back on. So I didn't. They said they were going to slightly increase my diazepam and to try some dihydrocodeine, which is like codeine I can't have because it makes my heart rate go crazy high with my POTS. Also, it affects my stomach. And they were like, oh, this is fine. This is liquid. This is dihydrocodeine. It's different. So I was like, fine, I'll try it. And I tried that and I ended up, all the new stuff. The first time I was drugged was, had tried the dihydrocodeine. My stomach got a lot worse. The whole time I was in hospital, I couldn't eat. I tried, and every time I ate, I was like severe explosive diarrhea. It was awful. And so they gave me dihydrocodeine, and I'm on 6 milligrams of diazepam a day, so I have 2 milligrams now at lunchtime, and then 4 milligrams at night because of my spasms in my muscles from my ADS. And what they'd done is they tripled the dose of everything on my diazepam, so I was having, excuse me, I just need some water. So I was to have, I don't even know. I think it was triple the dose. So instead of, I know what it was, a 5 milligram tablet 3 times a day. So 15 milligrams is a set of 6. So they weren't fixing the pain, and they didn't know what the pain, where it was, whether it was nerve pain, muscle pain, bone pain, anything. They were just feeding me diazepam. My mum and dad came to see me on the Friday, which was supposed to have my gastro appointment as an outpatient. But the staff on the ward I was on said I could go down in my wheelchair to the clinic so I could get seen by my actual gastro doctor. Because one had come to the ward, but he was useless and basically said that I should keep on with my elemental drinks, but I may never eat again. And that was all he said, which was really unprofessional. So my mum and dad came in, and that morning I got up. Eventually I was so sleepy. I was also really hot and my POTS went crazy. And then I spiked a temperature of 38 degrees Celsius. So I had clinically a fever. So they wanted stool samples and urine samples, and blood tests were done. I don't even remember that because the blood test, that is, because I was so out of it. I was slept all day. My parents were furious because they just drugged me up so that I was sleeping all the time and not in pain that way, which is not the way to do it because they weren't trying to find out what was wrong. And then eventually got moved to another ward, which I was on for literally, 6 hours. I moved in the morning, and by the evening I was on another ward, which was for renal patients, which is your kidneys. And I have no problems with my kidneys, so I don't know why I was on there. So it was crazy. The nurses and stuff were lovely, but the doctors, except for one, were terrible. Like, they'd come and see me and be like, yeah, you have to have an MRI as an outpatient. Yeah, we want to send you home. And I'm like, but you haven't figured out, I'm no better than when I came in. You haven't figured anything out. Eventually my parents like put their foot down, and eventually the doctors agreed to do an MRI on my neck at the back on the C-spine, which was lying down, of course. And I said to them about CCI, which is what we think I have, and they still did a lying down one, and apparently it was completely clear and normal, which at least shows that there's no subluxing or slip discs up there, but the pain isn't explained. So yeah, so I was like, eventually within 24 hours the MRI was done. The trouble was my wheelchair that I usually have was here because there was no room in the hospital, especially keep moving around and I couldn't sit up and all that. So when I went for the MRI, they took me in a porter's wheelchair when I should have been taken in my bed. And they were like, well, if you don't go to the MRI, you might wait days for another one. So I was like, look, just take me in the chair then, and I'll put my neck collar on. But they came to collect me an hour early, so I had to sit down in the waiting room for an hour in this really uncomfy wheelchair, and I couldn't hold my head up. And then my POTS was going crazy and I nearly passed out. So I had to press the buzzer for the nurse and be like, literally, I need to lie down, otherwise I'm going to faint. And within a minute, they were like, oh, your MRI's ready. And by that point, I was pretty much not sure where I was. I was all floppy. I was hot, sweaty. I couldn't walk. It was just awful. So that happened. And then I waited days and days, and I stopped the dihydrocodeine as well because eventually, on the almost a week into my stay, a rheumatologist came to see me who was like the clinical lead, and he's a lecturer for rheumatology at Addenbrooke's, so he was like top person, and he was the first one. The rheumatologists, every time I mentioned Sjögren's, which would explain a lot of my problems, they kept saying, no, your blood tests don't show Sjögren's. And I've been told by so many people it's possible to have false results, false negatives they're called. So he agreed that I would have a lip biopsy, which is when they go inside here and they take some cells from your lip out, and that's how they test Sjögren's, to see how much of an antibody is in the cells. I'm not sure 100% that's completely right, but that's what they do. And he said that I would have that done while I was in, and I can't remember what else. And also the dihydrocodeine was stopped because I was told it's basically the same as Oromorph, and I came off Oromorph before I went in because it made my POTS worse. It blocked me up so much. My stomach has basically stopped working. And while I was in hospital, I lost 4 kilograms, which is nearly just under half stone. So it's about 6 point something pounds. And the gastro doctor was really, I saw a different new one, because my rearranged gastro appointment for my patient transport failure thing was while I was in hospital too. And I was going to go, but the gastro doctor, who isn't my usual one, he was in place, but he was better, came to the ward, and I told him everything, and he was like, right, we need to test you. So, but not, you can't have it as an inpatient because the test will take ages. And I just thought, look, I just want to get home now. I don't care. I'd been put on paracetamol suspension, which is like Calpol, but for adults, and 80 mils a day, which is a lot, nearly a whole bottle. But, and that seems to have taken the edge off it. I'm still got a lot of pain in the back of my neck and some in my face. But it's helped. And now I'm just trying to chase my doctors to get it prescribed properly. So, yeah, it was really crazy because this new gastro doctor was like, right, we need an MRI of your small bowel. We need to do a sigmoidoscopy that goes right up into your stomach, and a capsule pill that you swallow that takes readings of how it travels down. Because basically I'd lost so much weight in hospital, I haven't been able to eat, and since I've been home, I've tried to eat, but I'm basically blocked up. I've had 8 sachets of Laxaday today, and there's no movement. Oh no, yesterday, sorry, and one today, and there's no movement at all for my bowels. That they're stopped. So yeah, that's not great. And then from the rheumatology side of things, this amazing doctor who said I needed a lip biopsy. As an inpatient, it turned out that it was going to be an outpatient, so I felt betrayed a little bit. In hospital, everything was more magnified because all these other people around me were coming in, getting told, oh, we might check you for this, going for scans, going for tests, and then eventually going home. And I was still there, and every day I would see a doctor and they would say a different thing. And towards the end of my stay, I woke up one night in the middle of the night, and I was in so much pain in my face. And they again I'd had the new dose of diazepam at night, the 5 milligram tablet, before I went to bed, and that was like at 11 o'clock at night. And then this nurse, she gave me another 5 milligram tablet at 4:30 in the morning, which you're not supposed to do because that was literally only 5 hours between. So the next day, again, I couldn't wake up. My rheumatologist came to see me but couldn't wake me. I was just asleep and out of it on the diazepam. And I was fuming because I wasn't told what I was given. I knew that in the middle of the night I was given some paracetamol and something else, but I didn't know what it was. And the next day, my parents put a complaint in, and the matron, head of the ward nurse, came to see us, and she said, oh no, you weren't given diazepam. And I was like, I'm sure I was when I was more awake. She goes, no, it's not prescribed at that dose. And then luckily I'd been in there for the first week. It was so frustrating because I needed my tablets at very specific times, especially the Avabrigine, because it controls my heart rate. And eventually they got me put on SAM, which is where you can self-medicate and you just tell them when you've taken it. Because they're a busy ward, you couldn't expect to have the same time every day. So I was put on that, and I had access to my meds, which is great because then I can take things on time and it wasn't as bad. But then they sent a physio who was useless. She tried to get me out of bed, and I was in so much pain in my face and my neck that I couldn't sit up, and she was trying to force it up, and eventually they discharged me because she said she wouldn't be of any help. So I was like, fine, whatever. And then I also saw a maxillofacial doctor because coincidentally my outpatient appointment that was booked months ago was scheduled for when I was in. So I went down to the clinic and I said about my face, and they said that it's TMJ, but he can't work out why my cheeks are so painful. And I have to these exercises to do to try and open my mouth more and stuff. And they're also the team responsible for the lip biopsy. So I checked about that, and he said that he'd only just got the request, and that was 4 days after they'd said that they'd done it from rheumatology. And I was just oh, for God's sake. So luckily all that's been sorted. I've signed paperwork to say consent forms and everything. So it should be in the next few weeks, and that'll give a final result if I do have Sjögren's or not, because I have all the symptoms, yet my blood tests don't show anything. So I ended up being okay-ish with pain on this new paracetamol suspension, and had a plan, and I was happy to go home, but they still won't check this. Originally, the good doctor as well, the good rheumatologist, said he'd re-scan with an ultrasound all this swelling to see what it was, because if it's something they can do something about, I don't know. And so I'm waiting until I go to see my rheumatologist in just under 10 days at Stanmore, see if they can do it, because basically I saw another rheumatologist at the end of my stay, and he was like, oh, we're not going to rescan under here because you only had one in December and we don't think anything's changed. And I was like, well, no, it's still swollen. And the report they're saying says it's normal, but the report I've received says it's fairly normal, but my salivary glands are enlarged and there's fatty deposits where there shouldn't be. So I'm just like, well, what's going on? So confusing. So I basically had a hell of a time there. They drugged me twice with the diazepam. They gave me the dihydrocodeine, which they told me was fine for me to take, but nobody ever liaised between rheumatology and gastro. And gastro was shocked I'd been given this dihydrocodeine because the effects it has on your stomach. They've said I should have no more opiates, being with the way my gastroparesis has turned out. So they said it's a trade-off. Either you accept that your stomach will never work again, or you have the pain relief that will get rid of the pain in your neck and your face. But I find that really just bizarre and frustrating because I can't have pain relief that's strong enough. I'm taking CBD oil again, but it's so expensive, and so far it's kind of helped a bit. It helped yesterday, but today it's not really helped. And I just don't know what to do, really. Yeah, it's a tricky one. But I've put in a formal complaint because the fact I got so messed around in the hospital, drugged twice, and the fact they kept making all these promises things were going to happen and they didn't. And I've got my first appointment letter through for this MRI small bowel, which will be the 28th of March. So that's a whole, 5 weeks, 6 weeks to wait from when I was in. So that's quite a long time. And I'm not under anyone. I was discharged to see some mental health people just because all of this has knocked me for six. A lot of people I know with EDS struggle with depression and things like that, and all the trauma of all the patient transport fails, and the gastro doctor and the rheumatology fails, and the Stanmore stuff. It just all built up, and I was just like, the level of pain I was in the night I went into hospital, I literally have never experienced that. I've had gallstones, I've had my appendix inflamed, I've had a toenail removed, and all of that was super painful. But it doesn't compare because it's in your face. It's there all the time, and on my face and neck, and I was screaming because I wanted someone to literally put me to sleep so I could never wake up and have that pain again. And my pain tolerance is massively high. But this was off the scale. When they were how much pain are you in on the scale of 0 to 10? I was 30. It's just so much. And they gave me IV paracetamol, and within an hour or two, my pain had gone down to a 4. And they were like, this is crazy. And I'm I keep trying to tell them every time I go into hospital that IV is the best way to treat me when I'm in a crisis, because it gets in your veins quicker, and with the way my stomach is, anything I take orally, tablet-wise, does not work, and liquid takes a while to work. So I'm really not sure why they just took so long. So the first few days I'm on IV paracetamol until I knew if the suspension will work, which it kind of did, but it's not really that great. So I have a constant headache still. I've got pain in my face, which apparently is just TMJ, so there's nothing more they can do with that. I don't know what the swelling is here yet. I don't know why my salivary glands are enlarged. No one can tell me anything. I need to save up to have one of these upright MRIs for my neck, because that's what everyone says to do. Yeah, so I've had a really terrible couple of weeks or month, or however long it's been since I last did a video. But yeah, it's just one of those things that so frustrating, and the NHS is crumbling, and the amount of mistakes they made when I was in there. They kept trying to force the menus on me, and I was like, no, I have all these allergies. And they couldn't believe how many allergies I had. And there was all the food in the hospital is frozen and reheated, and I can't have that because of the histamine levels, and they'd often serve food that was really had lots of onion in and very strong. Even one day I had to take myself off the ward because the smell of the dinner was so strong that my allergy to onion got so bad that my eyes were bright red, inflamed, my throat hurt, everything was bad. So, yeah, it was just a horrible experience. And I didn't need to be in there for 10 days. Literally, over the weekend, you get left. Like, I didn't see a doctor over the weekend. Sorry, I nearly dropped my phone then. So, they just wasted time. And the money it costs to keep people in hospital every day to use a hospital bed is way more than the cost it would be for them to sort things out quicker and get me home. But they just didn't. And I wanted to be at home, but at the same time I didn't, because I wasn't getting the same pain relief. And it's just horrible. So hopefully the next update I have for you will be some news on any of these tests. So that's it for now. Bye. Don't forget to subscribe.